Mercedes isn't done when it comes to upgrades, and they have 2 more races to achieve what they've been desperately trying out for the full course of the 2022 season: win at least one race. While they came close twice in Austin and Mexico, with the second one being even closer, had they got the right tyre strategy, P2 was the highest place in the podium they achieved. In 1 week, we're gonna witness an empowered Mercedes car in the quest for the P1 spot on the podium, as the team is looking forward to crushing their competitors. Could Mercedes unlock untapped engine power? Let's look into the details and find out. After the last 2 GPs, it is evident that Mercedes found some pace that could not just battle Ferrari, but beat them too. However, they are still far away from Red Bull, or more precisely Verstappen, who has been able to pass Hamilton in Austin with just a couple of laps remaining, with the Dutchman struggling with the 11-second pit stop. Still, at the Mexico GP, we've seen that Max had a hard time breaking the tow he was providing to Hamilton, and when the Dutchman entered the pits, the difference between him and the 7-time world champion was 1.2 seconds. However, the wrong tyre strategy is what caused Mercedes to struggle in Mexico, and that is something that they are going to want to be fixed for the upcoming GP if they want to beat Red Bull. It goes without saying that for any other team to beat Verstappen, tyre strategy or the right calls aren't going to guarantee it. Some luck, like slow pit stops or praying for DNF, would truly benefit Verstappen's rivals, and it seems like Hamilton is his biggest competitor for the race wins in the last 2 races. Not that it would change anything in Red Bull's absolutely dominant season, but Mercedes does have something left to prove, and that is that they are never giving up until the last race of the season. That is why the team is going to bring upgrades to their engine in order to dominate the Interlagos GP. But we'll get into that in a second, because first we want to talk about Wolff's approach to the remainder of the season and what he thinks is better for Mercedes: the P2 spot in the Constructors' Championship or the win in the last 2 races. To this, Wolff said, "The win. It would be proof that our car is back to fight for wins. P2 could also be because the others dropped the ball and you're just scoring more points. Finishing ahead of them, Ferrari, would be great, but again, it's not our main priority. The main priority is to understand the car and have a quick automobile on the track." It seems like Mercedes found what's working out the best for them, while Ferrari struggled a lot to get grips with their cars. That is why the Mexican GP ended the way it did for them, with Sainz and Leclerc finishing P5 and P6 respectively. However, Wolff's statement indicates that Mercedes might not push as much for the P2 spot in the Constructors' Championship because they're going to want some more time spent in the wind tunnel facilities and the CFD. The team finished P1 in 2021, and now with Red Bull securing the championship spot in the Constructors' Championship, Mercedes is going to receive increased time in the wind tunnel facilities. However, that increased time is different between P2 and P3, and it's increased if the team finishes P3 after Abu Dhabi. During the Mexican GP, we've heard Hamilton saying multiple times that he has power cuts in his engine. This means that the Briton wasn't performing with 100% of his engine, which, by the way, has turned out to be the most reliable one compared to Ferrari and Red Bull's Honda engine. Nevertheless, Hamilton's issue with the power cuts has been explained by Vowles, who added that one of the biggest facilitators for this issue is the lesser air density. This means that with less oxygen, the cylinders aren't firing up properly, and brief cuts in the performance can be noted. We were suffering a little bit with engine cuts, and here is the reason why. You generally map the engine for the conditions it is most used in, which is sea level. That's where most of the racing takes place. When you suddenly go to these levels of altitude, you are in a very different condition. Instead of having an engine that is really highly tuned, you are back into a condition where you have to do lots of work with a power unit in a very short space of time to try and map out these irregularities. I am confident all teams will suffer this. It won't be unique to ourselves. It's typically accentuated in qualifying because you're very quickly and rapidly applying throttle pedal, which means that the turbo and fueling systems need to keep up that change very quickly, and normally it's better in the race. We were hoping that the race would not be as bad, and it comes from a factor when the drivers are requesting throttle and picking up throttle. They were simply not delivering the power they request quick enough, so enough fuel or enough air. It can be tuned out in time, and where we got to in the race wasn't a bad position. I think qualifying was worse, but still enough to cause a small amount of performance loss for both drivers. With this, it's evident that Mercedes struggled a lot due to the altitude of the race, and in the upcoming 2 races, this problem is not supposed to prevail for them. So they will be able to push with full throttle ahead and finally win the first season of the race, something that would be truly a boost in a season that was challenging, to say the least, for the Brackley-based team. If you compare Verstappen and Hamilton's times during the Mexico GP, you'll notice that Hamilton was slower, around 0.2 per second compared to the Dutchman. However, he was chasing him on a medium compound tyre, while Verstappen was on the faster, soft compound tyres. This means that had both cars being on the same compound tyres, and if the track was at a lower altitude level, then the race would have been much more equal. That is something we're desperately hoping to happen in the upcoming 2 races, and now that Ferrari has proven yet again that they cannot be competitors for the championship, it would be nice if Mercedes tries to make things a bit harder for Red Bull in the next GP. This is something that the Brackley-based team fans can hope for, due to the fact that Wolff has spoken about the potential battle that would happen between Hamilton and Verstappen in Interlagos. After the Mexico GP, it's safe to say that Wolff was a bit disappointed after he said that the wrong tyre strategy is what cost the team a potential win. However, he quickly changed his pessimistic approach to this situation and continued to speak about the team's expectations during the Brazilian GP. It goes without saying that Red Bull is a team that has found it easy to battle in tracks that have high altitudes. However, the upcoming 2 GPs are going to be a bit favored towards Mercedes, who, although don't want to mention it, are pushing for the P2 spot in the Constructors' Championship. They're currently 40 points behind Ferrari, and it seems like the Maranello team has lost every piece of motivation they had this season when it was more than evident that Verstappen is going to dominate the season. While we are expecting Mercedes to dominate the Interlagos GP, or at least be competitive with Red Bull and provide them a good and solid run for their money, the team has switched its focus to the 2023 season and the W14 version of the car. Although Wolff is very optimistic that the team will return in the fight for the wins from 2023 on, he remains realistic and says that he doesn't want to say things that he doesn't believe will see the daylight. On top of that, he spoke that turning the ship in this industry is a thing that is much easier said than done, further elaborating, to turn the ship in this industry is a little bit like turning an oil tanker. First, you have to understand what the root cause of your non-performance is, and then you have to peel the various skins off. What's the first layer? What's the second layer? Are we really on top of all the questions? And the answer is no, we're not. But I think a big chunk of the performance that we are missing, we have discovered. It's not something we can change this year. It's decisions that we've made for next year. But I'm not 100% confident in saying that here, next year, we will be fighting for the World Championship. The aim is, the expectation is, but there is still work to do. With that being said, what do you think about Mercedes and the upgrades they're bringing to the Interlagos GP? Let us know in the comments below.